What's cracking, guys? Bruce Madsen here, your host show of Metric Scout Fantasy Football. I got a player that's been on my mind here lately. He's a big time sell for me, and usually I'm like, you know what? All players are buys, all players are sells, but I don't really have many instances where I just want to buy this guy, and I don't really see when I look at the market where I can really like capitalize just to see what would happen. I'm pretty much out. I don't have many of these videos because I'm very objective with these players. I'm also a fan of almost all of them, which to me makes it hard for me to just say I'm 100% out, especially when everybody's got a price. But I feel like this player I am just down on, and I'm kind of done with. I'm washing my hands and I'm walking away, and I'm kind of done, and I think that's all right. And you got to have a player like that, or a few players, or even a bunch of players that you know you're done and you're ready to move on from, even though there's a sector of the market that's not, or there's people out there that will still clamor for them. Let me know in the comments if you got any players like that you're just done and you're moving on, or you're not interested and it doesn't even matter. And I don't have many videos like this, so I figure since this player came up for me when I started thinking about it, I had to drop this. I had to talk about him because I don't get that opportunity to say, hey, this guy is a sell. I usually have to be very objective because I am frugal when it comes to price points, and I like to track values and go after the market. So there may be a player I don't like from an athletic standpoint, situational standpoint, or may not like in general, but I still might buy them when they're cheap. I still might buy them if they're free. But this player is one of the few where I'm like, I'm not interested. I see your name on the list, and I'm just going to go to the next one down, not thinking about you. If I get a trade offer, it better be dirt free or something like that. But it's an anomaly here that I get a player like this that I'm just 100% out. And you're maybe guessing the player, and it might surprise you, it might not. I don't talk about him much, and that's probably one of the reasons, because I'm not really interested. And as a wide receiver, another thing about wide receivers is there's a huge wide receiver 2 bubble where we have like 110 wide receivers now that can be considered a wide receiver 2, and the upside could be up and down throughout the year. And you know what? If you scratch one off the list, it's not going to matter because you got another 149 wide receiver 2s that you could choose from. So this guy's in the bubble, and there's other guys in the bubble that I probably should be scratching off too. I need to look at this maybe harder at a negative viewpoint just to see who I need to be getting off my list. But this is one guy I'm not drafting. And I'm talking about today about Chase Claypool. He has an ADP of 82. So early to mid-rounder, depending how deep your Dynasty drafts are. Some of our drafts are 30, 40 rounds with Devies and all that stuff in it. I got some crazy drafts. You probably do too. So he could be considered early, he could be considered mid, but around 82 is his ADP, 85th-ish player off the board. Wide receiver 43. This is already telling us that the market's skeptical. There are a few people that are high on him. There are a lot of people that are probably not. But this is already a tell in the market that there are people who are skeptical on Claypool. Going over some stats from last year. 19% target share. 33% share of the air yards. 18.7 snaps in the slot, so most of his snaps are on the perimeter, which makes sense considering how he plays. 5.2 yards after the catch per reception, 1.6 yards per route ran, 62.6% success rate versus man, 27th percentile among wide receivers, 68.4 success rate versus zone, 5th percentile among wide receivers. Let me read that off again. 68.4% success rate versus zone, 5th percentile among wide receivers. 60% success rate versus press covers. Mind you, he's a bigger wide receiver with a 60% success rate. 1.1% success rate versus double teams. This is all from perception, reception, so go there if you want to see the visuals on that. but the charts there is stating pretty much that he's not a very nuanced route runner. He's not good at creating separation. He's not good at winning off his breaks. And honestly, this is what I've been seeing throughout his career. He's been good off and on from a fantasy football aspect. He's made some splash plays here and there throughout his career. There has been some nice time, but I think it's just been buoyed. And from watching him play over the years, from his time at Pittsburgh, I just don't see it. I just don't see the upside. I don't see him being a wide receiver 1 ever. I see him lucky to be in the wide receiver 2 range. I don't see him being one of the top wide receivers. I feel like we got some value still on the board, and we may want to use that to sell out or just avoid him or see what happens. The team drafted George Pickens and Calvin Austin this year. Calvin Austin is an interesting prospect. I was not clamoring over him as a fantasy asset, but as a wide receiver 3 out of the slot, this could be interesting. His speed, especially if he gets anointed in the offense, he was very productive. But I really want to focus on George Pickens here. He fell to the Steelers at a value, a very good value in the second round. He has the potential to be like a top 10 wide receiver in the league. If the stars align, that could happen. Usually a lot for these prospects, it doesn't, but the upside's there. He's shown flashes, and the fact that they were able to get him at a cheap price point, there's a chance that it's him and Deontay Johnson as the alphas, and Chase Claypool's there just on the outside looking in. And George Pickens, although he's raw right now, I mean, it's been stated that he's been looking a little raw. I mean, that's obvious from missing almost a full year. From what we've seen on tape, there are some things that he needs to work on, but I feel like he is in a situation where he could take a step forward in his development, become the wide receiver 2, maybe more. Maybe they just run with 2 wide receiver 1s and him and Johnson. There's a good chance that he anoints himself in the offense. That could be this year, that could be next year. Calvin Austin, we just got to see what happens. The fact that they pulled the trigger on 2 wide receivers, decent draft capital on him, is a very interesting investment. His contract's up in 2024. I don't see him getting a big deal from the Steelers. I don't see why he would. One, next year's draft, the year after, plenty of wide receivers to choose from. Plenty of good wide receivers in next year's draft. College football is not hurting at the wide receiver position. There are better wide receivers in college right now that I would rather just put my stamp on than Chase Claypool. I'd rather go after them. I imagine the Steelers, the way that they're able to pick these wide receivers, develop them, I imagine they're going to snag a couple more of those, add them into the mix. And I know that their scouting department, well, I don't know, but I have a good feel considering analytics these days that if fantasy football community can do this, the Devy community can do this, I'm sure NFL teams have a good connection to the market at the wide receiver position at the college level, and I bet you they got to feel that there's a lot of good wide receivers coming up. Let's not pay up on our veteran here who's not giving us elite production, who can be replaceable, and get some of these young guys at a cheaper cost. I don't see him getting re-signed. I don't see any of the NFL teams giving him a big deal. He really has to sell out this year, really be productive for him to earn that. I don't see that happening. I see this being a Deontay Johnson show. If anything, I could see him not be on the same step or pace or whatever with these new quarterbacks. I could see George Pickens slowly develop into a large role in the offense. Calvin Austin's very interesting due to the size adjusted speed there. Collegiate production could be used too. And they could just look at these young guys along with Deontay Johnson and some of the other guys in the backlogs in the college ranks and be like, we're good. And then Chase Claypool's on the market, and what's going to happen there? Where's he going to go? No one's going to sign him as the alpha. He might be lucky at best to be a wide receiver 2 somewhere else, but he's never going to be the alpha on another team. Looking at the DLF Trade Finder, it's very interesting because you can sell him for a 2023 first. There's some trades on that. 2 seconds. Kadarius Toney. Someone traded him away and was like, you know what? I'll just take Kadarius Toney and I'm good. I'm it. A third and a second. Brandon Ayuk. a 109 and a 201. So 109 is almost a second round pick. You're getting a back end first. 109, you're probably getting George Pickens and maybe 201 David Bell or something like that. 204 straight up. Maybe David Bell straight up for Chase Claypool. Him plus 112 to get DJ Moore. That's an instance where you can use him as a package up piece. And then James Conner. And when I say James Conner, when I'm looking at this as context, maybe an older running back that's getting you production on the now that you're not using for the long term as that type of asset. But we have a lot here to work with. Some people are valuing them with some decent value still. 2023 first round pick. I'm very interested in that. I feel like I can snag a better wide receiver with that first round pick. Easy. 2 seconds in this year's draft. I'm not too keen on this year's draft, but there's a lot of options. If I can get like a David Bell and maybe one of those speculative running backs, or a David Bell and maybe Jahan Dotson falls, or something else, depending on where their second round picks are at, or if they're a 2023 second round pick, the second round next year's draft right now, considering that the running back position's more deep, quarterback's going to be a little deeper on the top end, or at least it's supposed to be. Wide receiver is going to be like any other wide receiver class from what we're projecting. Second round should be a shade deeper compared to next year. Kadarius Toney, that when you read that trade, you're kind of thinking, hey, someone's just selling him to get out. Third and second, someone's selling him to get out. Brandon Ayuk, very interesting. You're just restacking your deck there. It really depends on if you like Brandon Ayuk, or you can go with a wide receiver with a similar price point. Another guy you can probably go after if you like better, if you can make the trade happen. Not all leagues are the same, as you can tell by all these deals. Maybe like a Jerry Jeudy, somewhere in a similar price point area. 109 to 201. Again, two later picks, the 109 back into the first round, which is kind of juicy. It's nice to get a first. 201, it's almost a first, so you're kind of close there depending on who falls there. You can also do a lot with that capital there. The 201 and the 109, you could package those up and get something else. So there's a lot of options here. You can also use them as a package up piece. So there's still value here with Chase Claypool, and you could use that value depending on if your league's willing to deal with you to get something a little better. I think the 2023 first, I don't see that happening much, but for some of you, that may be a possibility. I would explore that. I would be willing to have everybody in my league tell me no on that 2023 first, if I could do that. In a heartbeat, I'd be doing that right now. I'd be just clicking the buttons on everybody in my league saying, I want your 2023 first. I want yours for Chase Claypool. See what happens. First and the second, same deal. Just see what happens. And then go from there. And then look for older running backs that you may want, maybe to help you out for this year. Look for wide receivers that you like better, who value very similar, and maybe go after that and pivot. But I'm not in on Chase Claypool. You might be. Let me know in the comments. Let me know. Let me know if you still are. Maybe I'm missing something. But Matt Harmon, on his reception perception, pretty much saying not good. I've watched him a lot and rewatched him. I think he's not good. The metrics are saying not good. 5.2 yards after catch per reception with decent size adjusted speed means he catches the ball, runs a little bit, falls down on a lot of his receptions, a lot of his targets. I'm not really into that. I want that to be a lot higher. I want a guy to be very explosive after the catch. Not getting that 77.3 QB rating when targeted. That's not good, even though Ben Roethlisberger was there throwing the rock. And I was not high on him when he was coming out for the draft. But let me know in the comments what you think about Chase Claypool, and are you still drafting him up? But make sure you hit that like button. Really helps the video and the algorithm. And if you haven't yet, smash that subscribe button, because I'm here to help you out with your Dynasty teams. Finding video clips from training camp, mini camp, OTAs, 4-H camp, everything I can find on these players. If it's something little and I think it's kind of comical, I'll post a video as well and give you a reaction. This is a different type of channel for football, fantasy football content, so I like to try to be a little different. But I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.